All right, we're back. We're back. This time I have a guest. Um, we are talking about this whole Shawn Theory situation. I think it ties into a um, much bigger deal. If you did not know, Shawn Theory recently announced that she is switching sides. She's no longer um, asking what's cracking. She's asking what's popping. She's gone from being a Crip and wearing a blue on her left side. Yeah, that's the Crip side. To wearing red and being a member of the Republican Party. State rep, uh, who recently lost her race, the primary, the Democratic primary, House District 146, I think it is. And yeah, so Lauren Ashley Simmons won that seat. So she's going to give up her seat in January, and she has decided she wants to be a Republican. Here she is with a picture with Governor Greg Abbott, who, if some of y'all don't know, just purged 1.1 million voters from the Texas voter rolls. That was in the news this past week. So, may want to check your voter registration. You might want to check your voter registration. Make sure that is up to date. Go to your local county clerk's website. They sent out some notices via mail. Whether you replied or not, you may or may not still be registered to vote. And this is a very consequential election. But I'm going to say less about it. We're going to watch a little bit, and then we have a guest. Uh, Here we go.
16 as a Democrat is flipping parties. Representative Shawn Thierry serves part of Houston. She lost her Democratic primary for re-election in March. On social media today, she announced the switch, writing, quote, "The party I once knew has drifted far from its roots. It has become almost unrecognizable, radicalized, and increasingly out of touch with the values that millions of everyday Americans hold dear," end quote. Thierry faced pushback from her own party last year when she joined Republicans to vote for Senate Bill 14, which bans gender-affirming care for minors. At the time, Thierry said her vote was, quote, "a decision to place the safety and well-being of all young people over the comfort of political expediency," end quote.
And with that, let me tell you something. I know when I'm not well versed in a subject. So we have a very special guest who I'm going to bring on stage right now. Let's see. I don't see you anymore. What happened? We have a guest here. Let me see if I can. No. Can you join again? Is it working? Can you see me? You may want to click join because I didn't see you. But feel free to comment over to the side if you'd like to join in on this discussion. But yes, yesterday it was announced that Shawn Thierry is a member now of the Republican Party instead of the Democratic Party. Uh, and she's not the first. She's not the first Democrat this year to do it. Now, historically, if we look at this, what's interesting, former Governor Rick Perry, before he was a Republican, he was actually a Democrat. Look it up. Look it up on Wikipedia, and you'll see Rick Perry was a Democrat first and switched over to the Republican Party. So this is not unheard of. It's not unheard of. Yeah, I'm gonna see. Is it not working for you over there? I cannot see you. I cannot see you in the. Maybe that's what it is. Yeah, oh, you know what? Here you are. You're down here. And so is Elizabeth. So we're gonna add, okay, I'm sorry. I'm like, listen, y'all, we're using StreamYard. We're using StreamYard. This is new to me. So I'm gonna add you to the stage. And I'm also gonna add Elizabeth Johnson to the stage. And I want to start off by just getting initial research from both of, not research, but a response from both of you. Crimson, want to go first?
Oh, sure thing. listening to, I guess, rationale behind switching platforms and kind of talking about this, it's almost like people are viewing this as a lot of people are viewing like joining the Republican Party as this moral necessity in order to kind of save society because it's kind of veered off. And part of that is this misguided attempt to save people from like being transgender or being involved in any kind of gender exploration, almost as if this is the new boogeyman that politics has, and it's been going on for a while. People have been um, putting in all, and people have been attacking trans people through legislation for years. You know, we remember the bathroom bill, remember everything in between that, everything before that and after that. And this just seems like another attempt to create a boogeyman where there is none. And I think and I don't think it's out of this bigot, um, just to this bigoted approach in order to like attack an entire population of people. I do think that it comes completely out of ignorance and lack of information.
And to that end, can you share a little bit about your personal story and how it fits into this discussion?
Oh, absolutely. So I'm a transgender adult, but before that, I was a transgender teen. Did a social transition when I was a kid. When I was about 16 years old, I would wear men's clothing. I would put on a binder to compress my chest. I would go by he and him pronouns with people that I met. And at no point, no part of that was medical. I didn't actually start my medical transition until I was 19. And I had to go with a doctor's note, a therapist's note, in order to even get started on hormone therapy. And I didn't get any type of gender affirming surgery until I was in my 20s. So it's been a very long journey for me. So that's why I know that it's not an easy one, and I know that it isn't something that people just select to do because they feel like it. It is actually something that is expensive, very emotionally and physically strenuous. There's so much more to it than uh, lawmakers and politicians will lead the public to believe. And I constantly find myself educating people who repeat these talking points as if that they are the black and white printed truth, and it's just not the case.
Absolutely. Elizabeth Johnson is on the board of the Houston Black American Democrats. She's also getting married in a few months. And Elizabeth, reflections, any reflections from this news that hit yesterday? Democratic state representative who's now Republican. Thoughts?
Um, Honestly thought it was like a child having a hissy fit, like when they don't get their way. That's literally what it didn't surprise me. It shocks me, but it really didn't surprise me. Especially with just the way that she's been voting lately. And just, how dead set she is on some of her issues. So it's sad. But to me it was like, oh, she having a hissy fit. Like
She's taking
that's
her
literally
ball and
what
going
it
home. She's like,
yes.
no.
Yeah, like a sore loser. Yeah, like that's literally what it gave. So it shocked me a little bit, but it's not, it's kind of, it's to be expected. I kind of figured she would.
I want to play this clip and then I want to get a response from both of you because I think we're like at this like very like poignant point as a movement. There's a lot of intersections that are going on. We have a black woman that is at the top of the ticket for the Democrats. But at the same time, we have a black woman in Houston, the fourth largest city in the nation, who just switched parties, right? And Shawn Thierry was not alone in her assertions. And I'm going to play this clip right here and we're going to get a response.
Off to represent much of Southwest Houston at the state capitol. Major issues like jobs, crime, and public safety has now been eclipsed by health care for kids seeking gender transition. Fox 26 political reporter Greg Grugan here in studio to explain how this controversial topic has now taken front and center to dominate this local race, Greg.
Yeah, Anthony, when mostly Republican Texas lawmakers voted to restrict gender-altering medical procedures to people over the age of 18, Representative Shawn Thierry stood with them, and she's been under siege from fellow Democrats ever since. Four-term state representative Shawn Thierry is fighting to keep her job, a battle for political survival triggered by a single vote of conscience on the floor of the Texas House.
I absolutely believe we should raise the age to 18 for children to receive GnRH analogs, cross-sex hormones, and to undergo potential irreversible body-altering surgeries.
That principled position has drawn intense condemnation from many in her own Democratic Party, who fully backed Thierry's runoff opponent and bombarded the incumbent with orchestrated harassment and much worse.
I began receiving death threats, attacks every single day, false attacks against my character, coming by my home.
I want to go ahead and pause right there just to get initial reactions before we watch the rest of this. Feel free to come off mute and chime in and let me know, what are you thinking so far? How do you see this tying in with this broader conversation? Obviously, this is the vote that led to the momentum of her ouster. Thoughts?
There's this thing that happens where people decide that they're going to aim their gun at a threat that isn't there. And I think that that's what we are seeing right here. It is really easy to gain support of people that you normally wouldn't gain support from finding a common enemy. And I think that that is what is happening here. A lot of people know that trans youth typically don't even begin with medical transition, that it takes a long time to even get there. And that when they do get it, it improves their mental health so much. And normally it's not hormone therapy per se. It could be gender, other forms of gender affirming care, like puberty blockers. And some people consider puberty blockers to be medical treatment, even though it's fully reversible, even though it is still not easily given away, even though all these things are heavily regulated. You'll see representatives and politicians talk about it as if people are just handing them out. And like we're ruining our children, when really what we're doing is ensuring that our children's mental health comes first.
And so it's really, I guess for me, and that's the reason why I was so excited to bring you on, because I think there's a lot of education that needs to happen, because the way it's painted is that there's surgeries that are happening to kids under the age of 18. Me personally, I don't like the fact that under the age of, we have 18-year-olds that are getting six figures in student loan debt, making a decision at graduation time. You go to college, what's your major? You're making a huge decision that for so many, you owe this money. And you want to go into nursing? Well, you still owe this money from this other degree plan that you got into. And so that's the way it was painted. Personally, I don't think, I think the reason why Shawn Thierry lost the argument, because she was not the only Democrat that voted in line with the Republicans. I think her main issue was that she did not have this discussion right beforehand. She didn't openly communicate with her community so that somebody like Crimson ... could come and give that education.
Agreed. I think that it's when you're speaking on behalf of a people and you're saying that you were trying to benefit or increase the benefit for a particular population of people, then you need to be able to talk to those people instead of talking for them and talking incorrectly. And again, like Bernice just pointed out, non-trans youth are able to prescribe hormone blockers. There are children that are getting there are cis children, so non-trans children that get all sorts of gender-affirming care, and it is not regulated or targeted in any kind of way. There's nobody going, I'm against 14-year-olds getting nose jobs. I am against some other procedure that would help that child build their confidence and that would not physically harm them. But we have this thing where it's like, here's a procedure that will help improve the well-being of this child and help improve their quality of life and is heavily regulated by medical professionals. And if we block this legally, what we're going to have is the same thing that's going on with abortion, where when you medically restrict safe treatment of anyone, there's going to be unsafe treatment available that is going to harm those individuals.
Can you, Vernus mentioned that non-trans youth are prescribed hormone blockers. You just mentioned it too. Can you tell us what hormone blockers are and like in what cases? Like what does this even look like? Because I'm going to tell you what my mind that doesn't know anything about it thinks, that there's a pill or a shot that will stop puberty.
So not stop, but pause. Okay, that's first. A lot of people don't realize that once you come off of that, everything kind of returns to like its original function. Like when you pause wherever you are in puberty to keep it from going to a point that you don't want it to go to. So like there's a certain point in time where your body will develop in a different way, in a certain way, and depending on whatever your medical situation is, because hormones are already something that medically is tricky with trans and cis people alike. That like some things happen when your hormones reach a certain level, and there are different things that endocrinologists and doctors will prescribe or will decide you should do just in order for your body to function the way that you would like it to, or just to make sure that you are safe and healthy.
Would it be comparable to birth control? Would it be comparable to birth control? Like birth control stops, again, another area that I'm not an expert in, but I'm assuming birth control. And listen, unlike Representative Theory, I'll say that, right? That I'm not. Vernon says, for example, your 8-year old, yeah, your medication could pause it. So, and I'm not sure what your partisan affiliation is, Crimson. Liz, I know you're a Democrat. This being the issue that pushed her sort of over the edge. Um, how would either of you have handled the situation if had it been you? If you were a representative, like where would your stance have been? And it would be the flip, I guess, for you, Crimson. So let's just say that you were representing a district that did not want you to vote for it, but you believed in it, and vice versa.
I mean, I believe in listening to my constituents. At the end of the day, you're going to vote how you vote. But I don't think she was just really dead. She was hard pressed on this issue. And that's really what kind of upset me, because there are so many more issues that we need to deal with when it comes to children anyway. So she didn't listen to her constituents. So I think that's where I would have definitely, what I would have done is, you go out to town halls, you go out to the community, you tell them, okay, this is what's presented, this is kind of how I'm voting, what do you think? And listen to the community. But she didn't listen to the community at all, and that's very, very unfortunate.
Crimson?
Agreed. I think that if I were to vote for somebody who decides that they want to put this on the list of things that they are championing or addressing, then I would like to know who their point of reference is, because you are not a transgender individual, or you are not somebody who has as far as I know, has a transgender individual even in their life. So why would I vote for you if you were speaking about things you don't know
Tonight on the podcast, ladies and gentlemen,
and are not and are not even willing to have a conversation with somebody about it? Because the first thing that says to me is, what are you afraid people will say in order to disprove what you're spreading?
Absolutely. I mentioned earlier too. She mentioned yesterday that she is changing from Republican. I mean, I'm sorry, from Democrat to Republican. Uh, she's not the first to do that. I mentioned earlier that Governor Rick Perry was first a Democrat and switched to the Republican Party. I mentioned that Eric Johnson, mayor of Dallas, switched to the Republican Party either earlier this year or late last year, and actually, I was about to say spoke at, but I think performed at is more appropriate. The RNC this year. I would love to get your thoughts specifically on that, because people voted for her. If I'm not mistaken, I think she was at the DNC this year. I know she was in Chicago around that time. And now, like, I guess, how does such a change happen? Whoever wants to go.
I don't know. As a black woman, I could never ever switch to Republican. Not the people, not the party that's telling folks to grab my pussy. Not, like, I just could never. I could never. I can't imagine. Now I will say that when I was in middle school, my both of my parents were Republicans, because then it was the party, of George Bush. And look, my mama calling now. That was the party for George, George, the first George Bush. Um, but after George W. they immediately went to be Democrats. I remember asking my father, why were you a Republican? And he told me, he said, because we're Christian and we believe in a lot of their values. But then when they started to see, yes, it's possible that MLK was a Republican. However, this is not the same party. When you look out at a sea of Republicans, you barely see people of color. So that was it for them. And since then they just vote Democrat all the way. But I know that they don't care anything about black folks. They really don't care anything about women. So, and I think it's crazy that at this historical time you would switch. That's what's crazy to me. Like, right now, it's very possible that we could have the first Black woman, first Asian woman to, of Asian descent to be president, and my mother is calling again, and and you are like you switch. That is ludicrous to me. Like, I can't imagine.
Yeah, we'll let you go on mute and answer that call from Mother Crimson.
Yeah, I wanted to hop on that bodily autonomy thing as well, because what we have right now is an entire party platform that is based on controlling the bodies and existences of other people. And when we get into that, then we are ignoring completely everybody's individual civil liberty, which is something that's really important. We talk about, a lot of people will claim that the Republican Party is the party of the Constitution. However, um, when we talk about individual freedoms, the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, this is being actively infringed upon by creating the kind of legislation that they're proposing. And like Vernon said in the comments, there are, when we talk about detransitioners or people who regret um, any kind of gender affirming surgery, trans individuals, it's less than 1%. While the mortality rate is up 17%, and that's absolutely correct. One of the things that I told my mom when I was when I came out as trans was, You're either going to have a happy son or a dead daughter. You've got to make that choice for yourself. And there are lots of people who don't understand this and don't know this, don't see the scientifically supported um, information out there that will tell you that when young people are able to be affirmed in their gender, either socially or medically or both, that their quality of life improves. That people who, the children who at an age that you would not believe, are showing signs of depression and showing signs of not wanting to be alive, when they are supported by their community and protected by the community, that they have an improved quality of life, that they are happier, that they want to live when they exist in a world that makes it so that they aren't being attacked, that they aren't being told that we don't want you in public spaces. We actually don't want you to exist. And if you just so happen to uh, be harmed in any kind of way, we're not gonna be there for you. We're not gonna step up for you. We have a lot of legislators who will very loudly proclaim that they are going to restrict access to services and treatments for children to protect children. But now we're seeing this even happen to adults. Right now in Texas, DPS is no longer honoring adults being able to change their gender marker on their documentation. So imagine that you are a trans man like myself. You apply to a job. That job sees that on your birth certificate or on your ID it says female. They're gonna have questions, and they can fire you without any consequence. So this is messing with people's livelihoods.
What is one thing, you're a trans man, what is one thing you wish all of us knew? What is one, if there was that one thing that you wish you could get across to the general public, that the folks who have never met another trans man, what's one thing that you would hope that folks would know?
That they very likely have. Trans individuals, well, it's a very small population compared to all the other populations that exist in the world. There have been trans people around for literally since the beginning of time. People that like we're looking into their documentation now and realizing that they weren't born the gender that they lived, and that every day you probably pass by somebody who is transgender and wouldn't know it. So when people say, "Oh, I don't know any trans people," or "I don't meet any trans people," "I don't want to see a man in a woman's restroom," all these different talking points that people like to say, especially people who are within the Republican Party, but I won't say only, with both, that they more than likely have met a trans individual and did not know it, and their world didn't burn down. Their freedoms were not ripped away. Nothing happened. The world didn't break. And that when we create space and opportunity and protection for all individuals within our country that have every right to live freely as they do, we're not taking anything away from anybody else.
There you go. So I'm going to go ahead and play another video. This is actually from this is another, or I consider myself maybe, well, I'm a podcaster now. This is from another podcaster. I'm going to play a couple of minutes of it.
There is some interesting news that just happened here in Texas. So Representative Shawn Thierry, she was a Democrat, and she's been in the Texas state government since 2017. She has been a Democrat the whole time. She's been a Democrat her whole life. Well, recently, Representative Shawn Thierry was running for office, and the Democrats decided to bring up someone to run against her against her seat. Why did they do this? Because Representative Shawn Thierry decided to support a bill with the Republicans where underage children could not do any kind of gender reassignment treatments or surgery in the state of Texas. And because she did that, the Democrats came after her,
I want to pause right there, and I want to hear from you, Crimson, just that little bit, because I work in advocacy. I've lobbied, right? When I hear what he just said, my question is just that little bit, is that narrative true? What he just said, or how would you combat it just based on what he just said? Oh, you're muted. You're muted. You're muted. No, I'll rewind it. I'll rewind it again so that you can see. And the reason why I say that here, I think this is what I believe. I believe we reached an impasse as a society, right? On a few different issues, right? I think abortion is one where it's like that. I mean, if you brought an alien from another planet, right, and you were like, "This is how we do things," and we eat food and we breathe air, and you just explained it all to them. They had an intake day where they learned how to walk and they learned and then you said, "Okay, now we're going to do the advanced version of humanity," right? And it's like, okay, there are three main issues, right? One of them happens to be whether or not and when or not abortions can be had. Like, they'd be like, what? Out of everything that's going on in y'all's world, like, that is the right? I also believe, and we got to be honest. Let's be honest here. If Kamala Harris is to beat Donald Trump, right, the coalition has to include the black vote. Yes? And if we're being honest, we also have to figure out, right, how do we get a sector of the black vote to understand? Like, there's got to be another way of communicating X, Y, and Z. Am I making sense? Thumbs up. Like, if you say vote for Kamala and we go to Holman Street, we go to Wheeler, we go to we go to the cookout, we go to This Is It, we go to Jack and Jill, we go to the Links, right? How do we get all those groups to not hit this wall? And so yeah, I'm gonna play what he said again, and then I'll get your response.
Well, tonight on the podcast, ladies and gentlemen, there is some interesting news that just happened here in Texas. So Representative Shawn Thierry, she was a Democrat, and she's been in the Texas state government since 2017. She has been a Democrat the whole time. She's been a Democrat her whole life. Well, recently, Representative Shawn Thierry was running for office, and the Democrats decided to bring up someone to run against her against her seat. Why did they do this? Because Representative Shawn Thierry decided to support a bill with the Republicans where underage children could not do any kind of gender reassignment treatments or surgery in the state of Texas.
That, like, I'm thinking, like, what does that look like? And in your opinion, how, because it's a thing, right? Like, it's one of the issues that are stopping the handholds and kumbaya that could happen, right? So how does that communication happen?
I think that we have this myth of the moral necessity, like it's the gender version of the white man's burden, right? Where as this person who represents people, I must oppress these people to let them know that I'm helping them. I've got to control these people to let them know that they need help. I have to, in my very misguided and undereducated way, affect these people's lives for the worse and convince them that it's for the better. And it creates like a bit of a rift because some people would hear that statement and go, she did nothing wrong. Maybe I should look more into what Republicans are saying about this because the Democrats are doing anything about this problem. Right. And so my concern is that I really do think that it could turn into a single issue, which it shouldn't be. But I do think that this would be, if the fear mongering is working, enough for people to jump ship and perhaps vote for it. Because I've talked to people that have been like, oh, yeah, I don't like the idea of it, but I will vote Republican because the Democrats have gone out of their minds in supporting letting children, harm their bodies. And I think that, again, this is completely mythical. We talk about gender affirming care. We're talking about so much more than this surgical boogeyman that people are creating without any, when I hear what she's saying, I don't hear any facts. And there's nobody beside her, next to her, or behind her giving her anything legitimate to say. And so that's a bit of a problem. But I think that misinformation can still, even if she's wrong, she can still convince a lot of people that she's right. And that's a problem.
Absolutely. I'm going to add this back, and we're going
And
to.
because she did that, the Democrats came after her, sent sister girl Jasmine Crockett to even campaign against her, and she ended up losing her election.
Okay, y'all. Sister girl Jasmine Crockett. Can we give him points for that? Like, that is kind of funny. I love me some Jasmine Crockett. I absolutely love Jasmine Crockett. But no, Jasmine Crockett actually was a member of the House, is now a member of Congress, and also came to speak against Shawn Thierry in her election. We're going to continue.
Now, after she lost the election, something happened. Well, she decided to get away from the Democrat Party, and this is the announcement that has a lot of Texas Democrats shocked and upset.
I was raised in a household with parents who believed that the Democratic Party was the party of the people. They believed it was the party that provided opportunity and believed in the American dream. Mm-hmm. But as the years have passed, I have watched with dismay the party that I once knew drift very far from its fundamental roots. It has become almost unrecognizable, radicalized, and increasingly out of touch with the values of millions of everyday Americans.
Go ahead. Go ahead. You got to unmute yourself. Oh,
No, I just, again, we start with this, like, it's ridiculous to me. It almost as if, like, and again, she just left the Democratic Party. She went to the Democratic National Convention. However, she's this soulless, horrible, like she talks about as if she's mourning the morality of the party. Like, these, this is supposed to be the party of the people, but they aren't protecting people. Well, what do you think trans people are, ma'am? Are they not people? That need to be represented and protected and have individual rights that need to be protected. And I'm going to say this really loud. I think that if you are supporting the welfare of your child, you are a good parent. I think that because there was a time in which legislatively they were going to criminalize parents for providing care for their children, doctors and parents, medical providers and parents, which is insane. Throwing a parent in jail or taking a child away from a parent because they wanted their child to live. So I just, again, this, like, there's a false equivalization. Is that a word? I should know. There's a false narrative being spread here, and she's delivering it in this way as if she's mourning something.
Mm-hmm. What, you know, the reason why I wanted to point this thing out specifically, as I mentioned earlier, you had Eric Johnson, who was a Democrat, now he's a Republican. You have Shawn Thierry, who makes a similar situation. I remember seeing with this most recent mayoral election where uh, John Whitmire went against Sheila Jackson Lee. Sheila Jackson Lee, I will forever say is the reason why I get to work in politics today. She and Erica Lee connecting me to her is the only reason I got my very first job in politics. So I'll never publicly say a bad thing about Sheila Jackson Lee. Now, if you also have worked for her, then we can shoot the shit all day long in private. But in public, right? Um, never that. I remember seeing some of the people who supported Whitmire who were black, okay, who were just raked over the coals. I would say some of their names, but I don't want to drudge that up for them who may see this later when it's posted. But we do have to talk about is there room for disagreement so that this is not seen as the solution that okay, I'm just going to take my ball and go home, right? Like what does that look like? And we'll go to Elizabeth for that, and then we'll play the rest of this actually.
So more time, I'm sorry.
I said, how do we basically put this in a way where people don't think that's the only solution to take their ball and go home? Like how do we create or is that the fact that people can disagree respectfully one party or even within the party, right? I can think of, remember Laura Mosier and Lizzie Fletcher? We limped through that race, right? I was getting all kinds of text messages. I was like, y'all leave me alone, So, how do we make it to where someone disagrees? Because looking back at John Whitmire and the late Honorable Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, two totally different views, but under the same umbrella, right? So, what is it? What is the alternative to I quit? I mean, at this point, she should just step down. I mean, after seeing this, I don't think, she only has a couple of months left, but I think step down, right? Like, you step down.
I think that's the problem. A lot of people think that, well, if I'm Democrat, I have to believe in this, I have to believe in this, I have to believe in this. And that's not necessarily true. It's okay to agree to disagree within the party. People do it all the time. I don't know. I think that's the problem. We just think that, well, if I'm Democrat, I gotta vote for this. I have to believe in this. And that's not really the case. I can remember when was that? 2017 when I was running for city council, District K. I remember we specifically, I will never forget. I was telling my dad I went to, it was like a minister's, I don't know, some type of minister's forum. And I remember someone asking me my stance on abortion. And I said, now for me, I don't believe in abortion. I don't believe in having an abortion. However, who am I to tell somebody that that you shouldn't have an abortion because it's, this is what the Bible says. But no, if your doctor says that you need to have this abortion to save your life, do what fits you. So that's what I'm saying. Like, so many people think that, well, Democrats believe this, I don't believe that, so I'm switching to Republican. That's not completely true. We have to teach, some of these people coming up that you have a right to disagree. It's okay, and you can still be a Democrat. Like, it's fine.
Absolutely.
You don't have to
Absolutely.
jump parties just for that.
Absolutely. Liz, I was talking earlier on the first version of this, before I came down to meet you, about the fact that, when legislation is made, right? When something ends up on the floor, there's been a whole lot of conversations that have happened. There's committee, there's this, there's that. And I feel like a lot of that could have been done in this situation. I mentioned the fact that, founding Houston Justice, now whenever they need a, activist quote, right? Whenever there's something with police, I'll get hit up by, the one of the papers or something like that, and they want that quote. Well, there's nuance and there's a spectrum in view. I used to work for the prison, right? I totally listen. If you looking for somebody to say we don't need prisons and jails, don't ask me, okay? Because now, do I think we should lock people up and throw away the key? No. But if you're going around neighborhoods terrorizing people, you need a timeout. You need a timeout, right? So there's actually another organization here who has a platform. I do not agree 100% with that platform, but that's for us to discuss, right? But I will never publicly bash them because I see value in what they do. And I do believe that eventually we will come to an agreement. We will get to that point where it's like, okay, you want chicken, I want fish. Okay, well, how about chicken tacos? Okay, how about shrimp? You go with boom, now we got shrimp. And we're good. We're both happy. So it's like Travis McGee said this will make SJL and Hidalgo seats very vulnerable. I totally agree. I mean, not only because, no offense, Judge Hidalgo, but you were very unhinged. That's me saying it, not either of them. You're very unhinged at that meeting and several other instances, right? And so there's this division that goes on. And so is there a world where Lena Hidalgo gets challenged and gets Kim Ogged? Thoughts?
I mean, I'm sure there is. Her time has to end soon, so it's not
Oh, is you
unheard
talking
of.
about Hidalgo's time
Hidalgo,
has to end?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It has to end, at some point. So it's not unheard of.
I was trying I was trying to unmute myself. No, I do, and I also think that, you know, looking at a seat like Shawn Theory's, and looking at a lot of these other seats, I think there's a lot of opportunity to do a lot of shuffling. Like, do people not understand in other states, they don't stay there forever? In Houston, specifically in Houston, literally people stay until um I mean, and I'm not gonna say names because y'all are not about to get me in trouble, but there are a lot of people who, it's been good. Like, you're a senior in high school, you're on top of your game, you're head of the football team, you're the head majorette, and then you leave. And I think, that has happened. Now, we have seen examples of that being successful. Christian Menifee, I think, is great. I would even point to Lena Hidalgo winning that race. Now, I think, TikTok. But, you know, there are other opportunities. I think, and I'm sorry, nothing but respect personally for Mayor Emeritus Sylvester Turner, who, listen, great person, right? And he said he's going to serve for 2 terms. Hopefully he does. And I would love to see. That's what we could talk about. Who would you like to see in after 2 terms run for that seat? I'm gonna put up Tiffany Thomas. I'm gonna put up Jolanda Jones. I'm gonna put up Ed Pollard. Let me tell y'all something. Ed Pollard has raised $1 million or so. Go to the Secretary of State's office and look at his campaign account. I think if this was an open seat, I think he would have been a contender. I think Amanda Edwards too. Your thoughts on that, Liz?
I don't know about Amanda Edwards. I can see her running.
Let me get your thoughts on why. And I'm kind of there too, but I want to hear your thoughts.
Because when I think of Okay, let me go back to when we were in Dallas and Congresswoman Eddie Bernice Johnson. Before she passed, before I want to say when she around the time she got sick, she kind of vetted Jasmine Crockett, right? Like she's a fighter. Like you know that she is for the constituents. You know how she feels. You know that she's going to have her constituents back. I can't really say that for Amanda Edwards. Like I can't see it. I have yet to see it. Let's say that she could very well be a fighter for her people, but
Versus
I
like
have
a
yet to
Jolanda
see that.
Jones. Like I would
Right,
love to see
Yolanda Jones
Jolanda.
or
Right.
even like you did say Pollard. I would love to see Tiffany Thomas
Isn't she?
step
Doesn't
up.
she give you Barbara
I can see that.
Jordan?
Yes, like I can see that. Even Chris Hollins, like I
Chris
know that
Hollins is going to be the next mayor. He's going to be the next mayor.
yeah,
He's, he's
yeah,
sitting back measuring the curtains. He's
yeah,
scouting staff. Like it's basically going to be a
yeah,
coronation. Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, I could for sure see Tiffany Thomas stepping up.
Let's look at the list of folks who actually ran. And did either of y'all pay attention to like that race itself? Um, the actual precinct chair situation. I would love to have your thoughts if you watched it at all.
Well, I was there. Are you talking about the vote? Yeah, that was
Like
a
who
Willard. Yeah.
ran and like how it ended up.
There were quite a few people that ran, and I believe I don't know if they understood that precinct chairs were the ones who had to vote. So, that was just very interesting. So a lot of the ones that did run or wanted to run, they didn't really know their precinct chairs or just any precinct chair. So they were kind of at a disadvantage for that. But watching it was interesting, especially when they were doing the vote. It was interesting in person just to see like who all was there and who just the dynamic of the votes and the people heading, making a beeline to the precinct chairs to try to, give them like make them
Were they
not
literally
make
doing
them,
that?
make
I
them
mean,
change their vote, but
were
like,
they kind of doing that? Like, I mean, okay, were
oh
there
no, they
precinct
were, but
chairs doing it or candidates?
no, not the precinct chairs. It was not the, it was either the candidates or some of their representatives. So you had at the front, it was kind of blocked off for the precinct chairs. You could not go in that section, kind of like VIP. You could not go in that section if you were not a precinct chair. Because there were a few that I wanted to speak to, but you couldn't go because you weren't a precinct chair. So it was kind of like that. Like they were either texting or like the not the host, but the lady that was running the meeting, she literally had to get on the mic and say, "Hey, y'all we're getting complaints of people texting and threatening, these precinct chairs, and just stop texting, stop emailing, stop harassing them. Some of them have already made up their minds." So it was very interesting to see because I've never been to one in person. So yeah, it was interesting to watch.
What who do you think should win this special election to complete the term?
If Mayor Turner, like you said, does it for
Not
what did
no
he
no no
say,
no no.
second
So
term?
he's gonna be on the ballot. So he's gonna win in November. He's gonna get
Yeah.
in January. But there's also completing her
Oh,
term.
her turn.
Yeah, who should do that? I know Erica Lee has
Who else is
announced.
running outside of her daughter?
I was hoping you knew. I've heard some
What?
names, but there are other folks who I heard where I'm going to do a quick Google search and see.
So I need to
Um,
know I don't know who else is running.
yeah, so I guess it's it's that is kind of it.
Sorry.
Yeah, and you're not a precinct chair. I don't know why I thought you were one of the precinct chairs.
I'm not.
You do everything else.
I know, and that's the problem. I think maybe because this wedding is consuming my entire life and it's annoying me. But it really is like it's really annoying. I think maybe after that, once I start like letting some things go, because I do stuff in my school, stuff at church, stuff in the community. So I think I would, because a few at church have been like, you need to run, but then that position has to be open also. So I know when I was in District K, I don't think the position was open. There was already somebody there. But now that I've moved with my fiance, I have to, I would have to see. But I'm not opposed to it at all. It's just somebody said, "What's it like to run for office?"
Yeah,
When I
I'm
ran,
putting that
it
in there. Yeah.
was when I ran, it was during a special election, so it was like really fast paced.
Walk us back through
Um,
that. So, uh, council member Larry Green passes away, and at the time you're living in District K, like walk us through all of it. So, when did you decide to run? What did you learn along the way? What do you wish you knew then that you know now?
so it's very funny. I've told this story before, but I don't think a lot of people know. So at the time I was in grad school. And I think it was the last semester of grad school, so that's already like hectic. I was at home studying, and now Harris County Attorney Christian Menifee, but then he was HBAD's chair. He called me up, he said, "Liz, did you hear what happened with your councilman?" And I was like, "Who, Larry Green?" And he said, "Yeah." I said, "No." And he was like, he died." And, I was like, "What? No, when?" Asking all the questions. And he was telling me, kind of what happens. And then he goes, "Now, I know he just died. However, I remember you telling me you wanted to run for city council in District K. I don't know, Liz, think about it." And I was like, "Christian, I'm literally studying for for a test right now, and I got a paper due and in grad school." He was like, "But Liz," he was really pumping me up. He was like, "How great would it be if you crossed the stage as Councilwoman Elizabeth Johnson?" And I was like, "Oh Lord, I don't know." So I was like, "Let me pray about it. I don't know. Let me think about it." So then, I think I called you. I talked to you. And then the third person I talked to was my older brother. And when I found out, how much the filing fee was or whatever, he was like, "Okay, well, here you go." And then he sent me the money. And I was like, "Oh, well, I guess I got to run now." So it was just like very fast paced. One thing I know, because I've worked on campaigns before, but it's one thing to work for candidates, it's another to run a campaign. At that time I wasn't prepared. Like I had not done a fundraiser at all. So I know the next time I do run, I would definitely make one of those, that like a priority is fundraising. Because that was the thing. It was like money, money, money. And, it was just like things were happening. So that was one thing that I wasn't prepared for, was the fundraising side of it and the money side of it. Everything else I was aware of, like, cutting turf, block walking, like that I knew. But the money part, I was like, "Oh my goodness." That like, shoo, that took me for a loop. But I enjoyed it. To me, I loved it. A lot of because there were 9 of us that ran. I think 8 of us were black. No, yeah, 8 of us were black. 1 was white. And that is a predominantly black and Hispanic neighborhood or districts. So that was crazy. um, so yeah, that was the mind blowing part. It really was fast paced. Oh wait, y'all are on mute.
Oh yeah, no, I was just saying, wow, that's amazing. Like that you were able to do that. I mean, yeah, that's just inconceivably amazing. So I just wanted to say that. That's all. I was saying it to myself, but I think you should hear it too. Actually,
Thank you, thank you.
So, as you know, it's a Kamalamanon, I've been saying. Everybody's talking about
not.
it's a Kamalamanon. everybody, it's reminiscent of when Barack Obama ran, and there's a lot of folks paying attention to it. Is there, and I'm curious to know from either of you. We're talking about Shawn Theory switching parties and all this. Would either of you consider running for office? And if so, where? And what are you doing today to prepare for that?
I'm looking at Chris's face. I would definitely run again, but I think my stance has changed when it comes to like if I would want to run it for city council this next time around. I really do want to do something with education because I do teach first grade, but when I started off teaching, I taught second, and it was in HISD. Now I work for KIPS, so the charter school and the district is completely different, but their needs are not. So I really do like right now I just got through with the charter school. It's Texas Public Charter School Advocacy something, but they had a fellowship that I was a part of, and they literally teach you how to not just talk to or advocate on behalf of your kids, but not just talk to like your party, but like all parties. So, I can go up to a Republican and talk to you about different issues that my school is dealing with. Like, for instance, I teach a kid Peace Elementary. That's across the street from what's the Black Madonna. What is it? Shrine of the Black Madonna. And honey, we are in all portables, but we are a B-rated school. We are a B-rated school, and most of it is, we're in portables. So speaking on behalf of my students, like mostly this year, we just had M-class testing, which is like the beginning of the year testing. Maybe all my kids are in the blue, which means they are above grade level. So why are we in portables? So it's things like that, like advocating on behalf. So I'm going to start that again. I think in September, they're going to start it up again. And hopefully when session starts, I'll be able to advocate on behalf of my students because that is what I'm passionate about. So I think whenever I do run again, it's going to deal with something with education. I don't know what yet. I don't know what yet. It'll come to me, I'm sure, or I'm sure somebody will present it as an option, but for sure, I'm definitely going to run again.
Crimson.
Yeah, all those funny faces. I know I should say something. It would be amazing because I think that because I care so much about people and I care about like all people, I think that I would love to, but it's such a scary thought. I mean, just hearing and knowing so many people going to caucus meetings, seeing how things play out. I wouldn't even know where to start, but I do care about one thing I really care about is education. But also I care about all of these other issues that affect our communities, especially environmental issues. So I would probably actually run for something that has to do with preservation, ecological preservation. Um, but I also care about social issues deeply, and I love bridging the gap between because we talk about is this a party issue, kind of like we talked about Shawn switching parties over this single issue, which I think we can. I don't believe that it was just that issue that caused her to switch parties, but I do think that I like showing people that we are all actually more like we think that all of these issues affect all of us. And I would love to even if I don't ever run, still get involved politically enough to show other people, show people that we don't actually need to have this wall between us and we don't have to hop this wall every time we disagree with each other, that we should actually be building bridges more than walls.
Absolutely. So both of y'all are very involved. Like Liz is like a member and on the board of everything. And so for those folks who may be watching and thinking like, it's an election year, what can I do? Both of y'all are very like active. What does that look like? And we're gonna close in a little bit because I know it's your Saturday and you got stuff to do. But what does being involved look like? I'm watching this. I just happen to be scrolling, and I really want to get involved. Give me your pitch. Where to even start, Liz?
I'm so sorry. Say it one more time. The fiance was coming. Say it one
Oh,
more
okay.
time.
Yeah. And I was just saying we're gonna close pretty soon, but somebody's watching this. They want to get involved. They want to do something. Where to even start, and what does being involved look like? And do you get that question often? Do people reach out to you, wanting to know?
Um, well, for me, it started, I don't know. Well, honestly, it started when I was younger. My dad did get us involved in a lot. Like he's from Beaumont, so he would like really drag us to Beaumont to like go block walking. Before I even knew it was called block walking. But just get involved. Like I noticed that I see a lot of parents, they always bring their children to things. That does stick. Because even when I got to, I think, middle school, I knew when I go to college, I'm going to go for political science. Like I knew that was, something that I wanted. So it's just really getting involved. If you have children, don't think that they're, especially this day and age, this era,
That they're not
don't think
watching.
that they
Yeah,
don't know, what's going
absolutely.
on. They definitely do. So you should definitely bring them along, like tag them along. Like when I was there at Wheeler for the vote for CD18, I saw some of, I call them my Sunday school babies. They're getting older now, but they were there helping their parents. Like, that stuff sticks. So just get involved. It doesn't matter if it's at the NAACP or if it's at your school. Just get involved. Like, just do what you need to do. Just do what you believe in. Basically, that's really what I do. Is I only go to stuff that I believe in and I strongly advocate for. But that's, and just speak up. Don't sit there and be quiet. Just you got to speak up too. So I'm talking to myself because I got to speak up more. But yeah,
Yeah, that's what's up. That's what's up.
yeah.
And Crimson.
Um, I want to echo that speak up part. I think that some people don't think that their voices will be heard if they say something, but trust me, somebody will hear you, and sometimes you just have to make sure that you are heard. Be aware of what's going on. There are so many different things that are on the news, that are on our social media feeds that pop up. I know that it can be really hard to kind of siphon out what really matters. But the first thing that I would do is look into what's going on locally. Start there. I know that sometimes we get so burdened with what's going on in the world, but what's going on in your neighborhood? You should know. And if you don't know, it's okay to find out now. I think that some people have this kind of guilt to them. Like, I'm not involved in politics. I don't know who my representative is. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what a commissioner even is. Things like that. It's like it's okay to find that out now. It's 100% okay to find that out now, and I encourage you to do
Absolutely.
so. I
Absolutely.
used to carry a cheat sheet with me to vote because I would like I didn't know who to vote for. I didn't know who was running for what their so I would take like 30 minutes to Google everybody, and then and then I would go through and I would look at and I was yeah, and I still do that. I'll if I hear a name that I haven't heard before, I'll Google that name. I'll see what they did. Quick little YouTube search, and now I'm more caught up than I was 30 minutes ago, and that
Absolutely.
is enough.
Absolutely. So as we close out, I would love this. Thank y'all for being my trials, right? So I'm getting used to this stream, your art system. Things are heating up. We're gonna be doing this a whole lot more often. And we'll switch seats, and either of you have questions for me or in the comments for those of y'all that are there.
I actually want to flip your question back to you. Like, if you were to run, what would you run
Hmm.
for? What would be?
Right.
Come on, I want to hear this from you. Don't ask a hard question and then not answer it.
You know, 2 years ago, I actually ran for state representative in Michigan, and it was an opportunity. Um, I was recruited to run, and I think you'll know because it won't be you that makes the decision. It won't be you that asks you to run. Similar to what Liz said, I think like there will be a group of people that will say it, and not only will they say you should run, they'll say you should run, and this is what I'll do to make sure that it happens. A lot of people will push you out there. They'll say you should run, and it's like, okay, well, what does that look like? I'm gonna need to raise money. I'm gonna need, like who you got with you, right? So in the past, when I've tried to convince somebody to run, I've said, I think you should run. These are the three people who I've already talked to. They're all on board. Dot dot dot. Like, boom. And I think I will eventually run again for something. And I learned a lot from my run. I learned so much. You learn so much about yourself when you run because it's a really it's a very vulnerable thing to do because you're like selling yourself. You're like going to these forums and it's more people asking questions than it is in the audience. But those people who are asking those questions are like, they're grass tops. So the lady that's at that event that is asking you questions talks to everybody at her Sunday school, talks to everybody at the HBAD meeting, talks to everybody. So it's like those are the people that you really have to win over because most people aren't going to do what you did, Crimson. They're going to call that person. And those are the people that come to those things. So yeah, we'll do two more and then we'll hop off.
Hold on. So what was in the chat? It says, what's the most valuable thing you learned, Darrell?
Oh, I didn't even see that. Y'all can see stuff in the chat. I can't see the chat. So
that's there's a private chat between the three of us.
Chat, yeah.
And I put, what's the most valuable thing you learned?
Yeah.
You said you learned so much. What's one thing?
What's one thing that I learned?
Mm-hmm.
The most valuable thing that I learned is that you will have people that are backing you up, and you won't know that unless you ask them to do so. You would be surprised the people who you think got your back and like they like, hey, let's do it, because you'll be shocked. Some of those are not there. And then the people who you're like, oh, whatever, that will really come through and really become like your like real support system. And I think that's a good like analogy for life. Like if you really think about it, some of the people that you go to brunch with, some of the people that you hang out with the most, that you do the most for, when it comes down to it, you're like, hey, yeah. So you learn a lot about that. And I won't lie. I'm not going to lie. I know pretty much every single person that donated. Like when I got those Act Blue things, so when you run as a Democrat, Act Blue is what you use. Republicans use Win Red. So you literally get a little email where it'll say, Jane Doe just donated $50. I remember who the people were who wouldn't return my phone calls, who, it's one thing to forget, because I will forget. Like it's some people who I told I would donate to, and then I forgot. And then they won, right? Hashtag Mario Castillo. I still send a check, but don't look like you need it. But, I would say that is like the main thing. And you got to show me where this private chat thing is. One more, and then we will close out. And thank y'all both so much. This has been so iterative. I think this is part one of like a longer conversation that other people, organizations, et cetera, need to have. Last question.
You know that you ran in Michigan as well as in Texas. Were there any similarities and differences? Well, I know there were differences, but what were the similarities?
Yeah. So in Texas, here's what's interesting. I think, Liz, you know this, but a lot of people don't know this. They probably wonder, like, what happened? So I filed for a treasurer in 2015 to run for city council. At the same time, I was in the queue for a job. Like it's kind of like one of those things. Like if you play for UT, if UT recruits you, you probably could end up in the NFL. Like you're now, right? Or at least like teaching somewhere, of note. And so on LinkedIn, and if you're not on LinkedIn, I highly recommend you get on LinkedIn. It's probably not as strong as it used to be 10 years ago, but I would get hit up by these headhunters. And so I would accept I would do the interview, and then I would always get final. I would get to the final level, and they would always fly you out. So I get like a free trip to New York, a free trip to Miami, because I knew they weren't going to hire me, right? I knew it was a DI thing. They need to say like, look, diversity. Well, these people said, yeah, and I looked at the offer, and I was like, really? Are you serious? Like, and so I had a decision to make. I had to decide, and at the time, Sylvester Turner was at the top of the ticket. And the theory was whoever was running at large with him, right? But the question was, so I ended up taking the job. I moved to Seattle, lived there for 2.5 years, learned a lot. And I'm kind of glad that I didn't win then, because now I understand the importance of being independent. Like, what I was like, my run there, and I had commitments for a lot of money. I had like commitments for a lot of money to raise a lot. I did a big kickoff at Ensemble Theater. Like, the train had left the station. But today I'm more like I know what the deal is there. The differences between the two, I will say, in Michigan, Detroit specifically, it's just like, I don't say I'm from Texas. I'm from Houston, right? You know where Houston is, right? Um, I will say people. I used to think people had a hard shell because, you know, this Southern hospitality thing, we're syrupy sweet. Hey, how you doing? Like, you lock eyes with somebody you don't know and you ask how they're doing. They don't do that up there. They don't do it. And if you do it, they're gonna look at you like they're gonna check their pocket for their wallet, like, you know, because it's like, yeah. However, once you prove yourself and you show that you're like, once you get in, then you're in. And so I will say it was very encouraging to see, like, the black slate is what they call it. The black slate like interviewed me. I went before the screening, you know, and Liz will know this too. You go in front of the screenings and you go in all like, I'm having a good day. And then they slam you and you're like, damn, I'm questioning my own, you know, if I should even be in this race. But they gave me their endorsement. I got several other endorsements as well. And you know, when you're on the other side, it's just like, oh, you're asking the questions, da da da. But as a candidate, it's like, oh, like they really got down for me. Like, after they gave me their endorsement, it was like we're in there. And so I won Detroit. I won the district was half Detroit and half suburban. So I won Detroit. I won Wayne County. And in fact, if you looked at Wayne County's numbers, people were calling telling me congratulations. It was like I was stabbed and then they like turned the knife with the congratulations, because I was licking my wounds the next morning and I'm getting congratulations. In fact, the Detroit News did a story saying that I won, and I got a screenshot of it before they changed it. But it was like, Darrell Douglas, 35, community organizer from Texas. You know, like, we'll take and it was just like, oh, look at this one day. But when I do run again, it will be here. And I hope whoever's willing to step in the ring, I hope you're ready to mortgage your house to run against Darrell Douglas. All right, get ready to take a loan shark's loan, because I come to play. Yeah. And there's that. Thank you all so much, those of y'all that are watching this now. How does Reverend Cosby say it? For those of you that are that are watching live, and to those of you who will catch this later, two amazing individuals that I got to spend an hour with. And now I know how the controls work. So thank you so much. All right. Y'all have a good one. All right.
Thank you. Bye.